And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house today. We're going to be talking about caffeine. Is it bad for your adrenals? Does it make you feel more fatigued and tired? We're going to dive into that topic. I did a video just a few weeks ago, and I'm going to build on that video and talk a little bit more about it and give you my clinical experience and expertise on the topic. Before we do, please love to see your comments down below. We'll be responding to them. And also, love to see what you guys think. Give me that thumbs up. Appreciate it. It helps the search algorithm. All right. So first off, caffeine. Caffeine, it has essentially a lot of antioxidants with it. If you're getting it from coffee, for instance, you have different alkaloids and theobromines that you're going to have some antioxidants with it. They have a lot of good benefits. Caffeine can increase free fatty acid synthesis. So if you're trying to be a little bit more ketogenic, you're trying to get more fat burning, it can help because it can mobilize more fatty acids. So there are some good benefits from fat burning standpoint. Caffeine can also have some satiety signals to it, so it can help with satiation. So for instance, a great way that you can do coffee, we'll talk about it in a second, is adding coffee and fat together. Because number one, you're getting ketone body. So let's say we add some butter, let's say we add some MCT oil, we're getting ketone fatty acids. Especially MCT oil is 7 times more ketone precursors than coconut oil. Plus you don't get the coconut flavor, which would maybe make the coffee taste a little off for you. So we add the caffeine with that, and then now we have more free fatty acids, plus we have the ketones, plus we have appetite suppression, and we're going to have some good dense calories in there. And so that does a couple things. So if you are caffeine sensitive, caffeine is going to, one, it's going to block the adenosine receptor sites, which are going to be making you feel tired and fatigued. But if you do it too much throughout the day, you will get a rebound in days to come. And so my general recommendation with caffeine is consume it in the first 1 to 2 hours of waking up. So if you're up at 7, try to have your caffeine done by 9. Again, you will have, like, let's say you go to bed by 10, 11 o'clock that night, 12 to 14 hours later, you will have 90 to 95% of that caffeine fully metabolized. So if you have 2-3 cups, that's 200 to 300 milligrams. You will only have maybe 10, 20 milligrams of caffeine in your body. Again, the half-life of caffeine is 4 to 6 hours. You have to do about 5 half-lives for it to finally go down to nothing. But your terminal half-life is going to be about 12 to 16 hours. And so you're pretty close to that time frame. If you start doing caffeine in the afternoon, now it can start to throw it off. Now, again, if you are genetically sensitive, right, the CYP1A2 genetics, that's the gene that's really sensitive to caffeine. How do you know you have these genes? You have that caffeine and you're wired, like throughout the entire day. That's the first thing. You don't have to do a test for it. If you don't feel good, you have anxiety, your heart's racing, you feel jittery afterwards, and it's lasting a long period of time, you probably have that CYP1A2 gene. Now, a couple of things you can do to make caffeine more tolerable. Mix it with fat, like I mentioned, butter, MCT oil, or both. Adding in protein with it is also great too, because that time releases the caffeine. So the caffeine coming in like this, and you have that acute effect. You have that acute, because first thing is you're going to do is you're going to stimulate adrenaline. Adrenaline then stimulates cortisol. And then, of course, you're going to have the adenosine blocking effects as well. And then you'll have some of those free fatty acids coming in as well. If I can time release it with the fat, and I can time release it with the protein, because as we increase adrenaline, what are the things that we're worried about? We're worried about maybe our body being a little bit more catabolic, breaking down protein, right? Well, if we have amino acids in our coffee, guess what? Our body's going to more than likely go after the protein that's already there in the bloodstream than go after muscle. It's a lot harder to take muscle and break it down than it is just to take amino acids that are in the bloodstream. So first off, with the amino acids, you blunt any of the catabolic effects you could have from caffeine vis-a-vis adrenaline and cortisol. Number 2, we time release the caffeine so it comes in slow. The more time release the caffeine comes in, the less adrenaline we're going to spike. It's like consuming carbohydrate. If I consume, let's say, some fresh organic berries with fiber, the glucose comes in like this, glucose fructose comes in like this. But if I consume the equivalent in high fructose corn syrup, it's going to come in like this, right? And so the faster our blood sugar goes up, the more insulin we have. Guess what? The faster our caffeine comes up, the faster our adrenaline, cortisol, and stress response happens as a result. So first off, we time release the caffeine with fatty acids. We utilize fatty acids that have ketone precursors. Why? Because caffeine is going to increase free fatty acid synthesis. And that's also going to keep our body satiated. So it allows us to go, a good 6 hours maybe in the morning without any food. And if you have tummy issues, it's a great way to start your day, not having a lot of hard stuff to digest. You have collagen peptides that are already broken down. You have good healthy fats. Coconut oil or MCT doesn't require a lot of lipase or bile to break it down. You may have some butter in there or ghee if you can tolerate that too. And then you're going to get some of the carotenoids and some of the polyphenols that are going to be in the grass if it's like grass-fed Kerrygold butter. And then you're on the right track there. And so And then you can always add in some additional mushrooms. If you're in a focus mode, you could add in some, let's just say, lion's mane, which is very helpful. It really stimulates some of the BDNF in the brain and increases dopamine. We may also add in like some reishi mushroom. Big fan, maybe even adding in some fish oil like in a supplement form, because that's going to really help the phospholipid barrier in your brain and really help that good, healthy receptor sites. Very anti-inflammatory. So that's a great way to handle it out of the gate. Now, if you're sensitive, that first 1 to 2 hours is going to be key to consume it in. Anything after that, if you can't handle coffee, you can always do the same thing with caffeine free or decaf, right? A Swiss water process or a CO2 extract is going to take the caffeine out in a non-chemical way. So if you're worried about the chemicals from decaf, don't worry about it. Do a Swiss water process or a CO2 extract. That'll do it non-chemical. And you get about 95% of the caffeine out. So if 1 cup of coffee has 100 milligrams, you'll be down to 5 milligrams with a decaf cup. And so you can still get that same benefit. Or you can always just do like maybe a 1 to 2 extract, if like you're normally doing 3 cups, you could always do 1 cup with the 2 decaf, and then you can combine it in there. So I'll typically do 2 to 3 cups in the morning, about 20-ish, 22 ounces. And for me, it's more of a meal replacement because I'm adding about 20 to 30 grams of protein, and I'm adding about 1 to 2 tablespoons of fat with it. And so that time releases it. That provides a lot of good nutrients. And again, my blood sugar is going to be super stable. Like when I take my blood sugar reading after consuming I call it a meal replacement coffee, if you will, right? Keto coffee. My blood sugar barely goes over 100, 110, right? So very, very smooth blood sugar. Then it's back below 100 within that hour. And I have all these ketones where my appetite in the morning, I am just like totally good. Like you could put a donut in front of me. I'm like, my willpower is awesome because ketones are very, very appetite satiating. And so if you can get good ketone precursors in your bloodstream, now your appetite's good. Plus your brain's going to have an additional fuel source to run off of because ketones can be very good, very excellent like that too. And then you could always add in some extra antioxidant support. You could add in like a methylene blue or a NADH supplement, like a nicotinamide riboside chloride kind of product to really help with the antioxidant properties in the brain. Can be very helpful. Really get the brain firing on all 8 or 6 cylinders. Hope that helps, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm going to come back here and hit a couple more topics here today. So if you guys want to dive in, put your comments down below. I want to see what you guys want to hear more of, and I'll bring you some more of that content. So first off, if you can't handle caffeine, don't worry about it. There's other things out there like Ticino. So you could do Ticino, which is like a chicory root thing that you could do because I just like the warmness. I like the routine. You could do bone broth in the morning and add some additional collagen to it and a little bit of MCT, and you could still get some of the same, that kind of warm benefit in the morning if you like the ritualistic routine of drinking a warm beverage in the morning. There's some good mushroom coffees that are out there that have some of these nutrients in it, and you could get a decaf version of it. Four Sigmatic has a good one that has some lion's mane in it and some turkey tail, and you could do the same kind of butter to MCT oil blend, about a 1 tablespoon per. Again, if you get loose stools on the MCT, just back off a little bit. Start with a teaspoon, go up from there. There's 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon, so start with 1 and then go to 2, and then you can go to 3. See how you feel there out of the gates. I recommend blend it in a glass blender. A lot of blenders I see, you got the like Vitamix or the Ninja, they're all plastic. So you don't want the microplastics getting in there. So I typically blend it for about 20 to 30 seconds. And that gives that nice emulsification, that nice crema on top. So you're good to go. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, let me know. Again, caffeine, is it bad for you? Honestly, if you don't have that CYP1A2 gene, you're probably okay. Are you jittery? Are you anxious? Also, when you consuming caffeine, it's a diuretic, so you will pee a little bit more. So start your day and load in on electrolytes before you start your caffeine. If you wake up and you go to the caffeine right away and you don't hydrate first and you don't get your electrolytes in, some sodium chloride, potassium, right? Then you could start your day on the lower electrolyte side because now you're inhibiting that ADH, that anti-diuretic hormone. Now you're peeing a lot more. Now you're losing your electrolytes. Plus, if you have higher cortisol because of the coffee, you could also be peeing out more of your potassium and your electrolytes. So it's really good to be on top of starting your day with at least 15 to 20 ounces of good, clean, filtered water. Add some electrolyte support in there, whether it's some Celtic Himalayan, Redmond's Real Salts, or a good electrolyte blend, then you're pretty good to go on that. Is coconut oil bad for high saturated fats? No, I'm not worried about it because coconut oil, number one, is going to equally increase HDL, and HDL is going to help clean out any of the cholesterol in your bloodstream. So I'm not worried about it. Lots of studies on coconut oil, not bad at all. The fatty acids that are bad are going to be fatty acids that are polyunsaturated fatty acids, okay? So when you look at like an omega-3 or omega-6, the double bond is where the omega is. So if you look at an omega-3, a fatty acid is a carbon, hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. Okay. Then it's connected to another carbon, two hydrogens, carbon, two hydrogens, carbon, two hydrogens, carbon, two hydrogens, carbon, two hydrogens. That's basically your MCT oil. That's in the 6 carbon lane. Okay. Now, if we go back, right, this is organic chemistry. Like this is like your first semester organic chemistry when you're learning about fatty acids. If we go take that carbon, double bond, carbon, and then we go a single bond. So carbon, single, carbon, single, carbon, single, and then right here, the third bond is a double. That's an omega-3. So the double bond is where the omega is. So the omega-3s, they could be more fragile. That's going to be your fish. But when you see carbon and that 6 carbon, that's where the double bond is. That's your omega-6 fatty acid. So the omega-6, that tells you where the double bond is. And the more the double bond comes later in that strand, the more unstable that fatty acid is. And so, like I mentioned, how each one of those carbons has a hydrogen, right? They're each like this, right? And what happens when you overly oxidize that fatty acid, the hydrogens flip. Now it's in a trans configuration. So cis configuration is 2 hydrogens like this. And then when you apply too much heat, now you flip it. Now you have a hydrogen up and down. And that makes the fat rancid. And that starts to create lipid peroxides in the body. It creates antioxidant distress. So it's going to deplete your vitamin C, deplete your vitamin A, deplete your vitamin E. So it requires a lot more nutrients, and it can be very bad for your blood vessels because it's just creating a lot of oxidative stress, a lot of inflammation. So just think about that. So not worried about the coconut oil. I think it's wonderful. It's a good, healthy, saturated fat. I think that the nuts and seed oils are overplayed. I think there's like different degrees of nut and seed oils. There's like canola that involves like hexane and deodorizers and all kinds of nasty stuff. And then there's like peanut oil, or there's other oils that may be more cold press. My thing is eat 80 to 90% of your fats from healthy, saturated fatty acid sources, animal sources, ghee, butter, coconut oil, and then you probably don't have to worry about that last 10 to 20% as long as you're on point with the good stuff. And then, of course, some cold pressed olive or some mono unsaturated avocado, and then you're pretty good to go on that one. So yeah, keep it simple. If you have that 80 to 90% on point, you're probably pretty good. Unless you have a known autoimmune condition or you're very inflamed, very in pain, a lot of symptoms, then you got to be more careful on that. Some patients that will just have a little bit of a something, and that cheat meal just sets them off for days and days and days. And so you have to look at and see how sensitive you are. The goal is that you get so healthy that you can adapt to a little bit of processed stuff. And there's degrees of processed stuff. So if you went to, let's say, Chipotle, but you had a decent meal, and then maybe there was some white rice and some canola in there, maybe a big deal to some, may not be a big deal, right? So do your best. Like when I go out, if I have white rice, I'm getting straight white rice. And when I do like a Japanese hibachi, I'm getting no marinade. And then I'll have like either a little bit of butter I'll put on that. So I can control the fat, I can control the carb, and I can control the marinade, which normally has a bunch of sugar, a bunch of canola, a bunch of soy, and not the best. So you can definitely just choose your best on the cheat sides of the fence there. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight. Again, whether or not coffee is good for you, I think coffee is wonderful. Just make sure you run it versus it running you. Do it in the first hour or two a day. If you're sensitive, just do straight caffeine that's decaf, or do straight coffee that's decaf, and that's going to be 95% caffeine free. And if you are going to do coffee and you're sensitive, are you anxious? Are you jittery? Is your heart rate up? Work on the hydration first, work on the electrolyte first, work on time releasing it with the protein and fat, and that may allow you to be able to handle it moving forward. All right, guys, let me know if you enjoy. Comments down below. And if you want to dive in deeper, if you're needing help with your hormones, you need to look a little bit deeper here. There'll be a link where you can reach out to myself, my staff and team. We're happy to help you out. We see patients worldwide. All right, guys, hope you enjoy. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.